Egypt, a land of hidden treasure, buried secrets, and unanswered questions. How did a civilization that lacked basic iron tools produce the most recognizable, most enduring buildings ever constructed? Generations of Egyptologists have studied the pyramids. With new evidence and techniques, experts piece together the stories of the men who were responsible and the vast resources they mobilized. They caused a revolution. Who built the pyramids and why?
Seven kilometers long, 3.5 miles at least. It's like a maze corridor. If you don't know your way, you'll never come back.
Dr. Zahi Hawass explores a network of tunnels beneath a man-made mountain of rock, a pyramid. At its heart, the chamber holds a single empty coffin, the reason why this entire structure was built.
This beautiful alabaster sarcophagus is one of the most amazing discoveries ever happened under the pyramids. It tells us about the religious belief of the ancient Egyptian since 5,000 years ago.
A pyramid was built to hold the body of a king or a queen. But it was more than a tomb or monument. The pharaohs believed that a pyramid had a practical function. After death, it would transport them into the afterlife.
In ancient Egyptian, the word for pyramid has as its root to ascend. So there's a direct relationship between the form of the pyramid and the ascension of the king into the celestial realm.
There are approximately 80 known pyramids in Egypt. While ancient Egyptian civilization lasted 3,000 years, the most recognizable of these were built during a golden age of little more than a century. The largest is the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing. It's made from almost 6 million tons of rock, cut, carved, and carried by hand. For nearly 4,000 years, it was the tallest building on Earth. Khufu's pyramid is located on the edge of the city of Cairo. Flanked by the smaller pyramids that his descendants built, it's the classic image of Egypt.
When you stand in front of the pyramids, just absolutely, your jaw drops out. Like, you've never seen anything like that before. And I think that all of that adds to the mystique, the aura, the mystery of the pyramids to try to lead to an explanation of why they exist.
It's this question which most intrigues Egyptologists. This civilization had no modern engineering technology. Why would Egyptians dream of building on this scale? To find out, archaeologists look back thousands of years to some of the earliest Egyptian societies.
At some point in the remote early period of Egypt's history, there was a belief in the afterlife, and that belief is exhibited by the fact that the dead were interred in shallow pits that were buried in the ground.
These early burials are covered with piles of rock and sand, perhaps to protect the bodies from scavengers. Over time, these burial mounds take on a religious symbolism in the Egyptian story of creation.
This mound above the tomb probably is a representation of the first mound emerging from the primeval ocean when life, the world, was created. And it was a symbol of life. It gave the power of revival for the king for his new life, an afterlife.
These are the first structures in Egypt placed on top of a burial to ensure the rebirth of the dead. But how do small mounds of sand evolve into immense pyramids of stone?
They started off very simply and wound up with increasingly elaborate monuments. So it was a hole in the ground covered by a mound first, and then this mound turned into a mastaba.
The mound becomes a building, the mastaba. Instead of piles of earth, mud bricks are arranged to form inward sloping walls topped with a flat roof. Professor Gunter Dreyer spent years investigating this development. He believes these early buildings were constructed to enable the tomb's occupant to store enough possessions for the journey into the next world.
They needed everything they had in real life, also in afterlife. First, of course, food. Then tools, weapons, jewelry, everything.
A mastaba is part tomb, part palace, part storage facility. Mud brick was the only construction material available.
The bricks are bonded in a certain way. Headers, like these, with the short end showing out, and stretchers. And these layers of headers and stretchers usually alternate to give it more stability, to avoid cracks.
Over time, the tomb builders become more skilled in the way they use brick. At Abydos, around 300 miles south of the Great Pyramid, Professor Dreyer excavated the pit tomb of the pharaoh Khasikimu. It's been reburied in sand to protect it. But when it was exposed, Professor Dreyer found something very unusual.
This tomb was built all in mud bricks, but it was very strange. Around the burial chamber, all the walls were compressed to half the original height, but became much thicker. And we have to conclude there must have been an extra weight on top of these middle chambers.
Professor Dreyer believes the walls in the middle of the tomb were crushed by the weight of a stone-clad superstructure. Could these be the first signs of a pyramid shape emerging? Experts know that a big leap in pyramid building occurs around 20 years later, in 2630 BC, when the pharaoh Djoser begins to build his tomb.
When we look at the development of the royal tombs, it's a step-by-step development, but always getting bigger, more elaborate. But with Djoser, there is, I think, one of the biggest steps.
Djoser's tomb starts as a large mastaba, similar to those built by his predecessors.
Djoser decided to build this large enclosure wall around it. That wall obscured the view of that mound. And so his architect had a very easy solution to make it visible again. Let's build another mound on top of that, another mastaba on top of that. And there we have the step mastaba or step pyramid with 6 steps, the height of more than 60 meters.
The step pyramid holds an important place in the history of architecture. Standing at Saqqara, south of Giza, it is the oldest stone building in the world. The fact that it still stands highlights the clear advantage of stone over mud brick.
Eternity is a long period, very long, never ending. Mud brick would not last forever, but stone is a more durable material.
Stone offers the Egyptians an invaluable prize: eternity.
The Egyptians did everything they could to ensure that their tombs were monuments to last forever. And I think that's one of the reasons that the pyramids are built of stone. These are mansions of eternity. They're made of stone, like mountains, like the matrix of the earth, to last forever and ever and ever.
The builders began by using techniques that they knew and trusted.
The stones used here follow the shape of mud bricks, headers and stretchers, to bond them like mud bricks.
But the result could not have been achieved with mud bricks, only stone. Djoser's step pyramid rises nearly 200 feet, and that's not the only innovation. Dr. Zahi Hawass descends beneath the step pyramid to show how far its design has evolved from those first simple pits. There are more than 3 miles of tunnels, chambers constructed under thousands of tons of stone to house Djoser, his family, and his possessions in splendor.
This burial chamber is like a miracle of architecture. The step pyramid, the first stone pyramid on Earth.
Archaeologists know who is responsible for this architectural revolution. They can put a name to the man, the genius, who designed the first pyramid. Many things about the pyramids of Egypt are remarkable. Their sizes, their ages, the fact that they are still standing. And now, thousands of years later, Egyptologists can name the man who built the very first pyramid.
When we talk about great innovations in history, we think about the wheel, we think about the invention of fire, and we're not able to put a name to any of those inventions. But we do have a man whose name we put on stone architecture.
An expert in the art of the ancient Egyptians, Dr. Robert Bianchi believes the remains of a statue of the pharaoh Djoser reveal the name of that architect.
This statue base was discovered near the enclosure wall of the Djoser pyramid in 1926. It's important for several reasons. First of all, it has the name of Djoser preserved for us, one of his names here on the left-hand side. As we started to read the inscriptions on the statue, we noticed something very extraordinary and almost unique in the history of Egyptian art. And that is that in the second line from the bottom on the left-hand side, we have Imhotep, the name of Imhotep. So by putting the name of Djoser and this epithet referring to Imhotep on the statue, Djoser is elevating Imhotep almost to divine status.
A statue of the king is sacred, believed to be an extension of his body. So for the name of this mortal man to appear on Djoser's statue is extraordinary.
And then you have to ask yourself, now why would he do that? The answer to that may lie in the series of titles that define Imhotep's quality on the left-hand side. He is the carpenter, he is the sculptor, and he is the fashioner of stone vases. So these are giving us the craft titles that this man has that lead us to believe that he was the architect of the Great Step Pyramid, which was the first stone monument ever created in the history of the world.
Imhotep, the name of the man who builds the very first pyramid.
He is the first one to change architecture in the world, on Earth, from mud brick to limestone. He is the first one on Earth to make the first ceiling, the first pillar of limestone.
Historical architect Jonathan Foyle tries to unravel the thought process which leads Imhotep to draw up plans for this pyramid.
I really want to understand how this leap of logic in turning a flat mastaba tomb into a big step pyramid over the top of it, which creates one of the most distinctive architectural types the world's ever seen. I want to understand how the pyramid develops, how he set it out in his mind 4,600 years ago.
Dr. Foyle begins with an accurate scale drawing.
All right, well, there's my drawing then of what I think Imhotep's design for Djoser's pyramid was like originally. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. The bottom one's been a bit robbed away. And what you see in this drawing that you don't in the surviving pyramid is the casing of fine white limestone that must have made this thing perfect and sparkling to those people who saw it for the first time.
The step pyramid is 11 million cubic feet of stone, clad entirely in white limestone. Nothing like this has ever been seen before. It's clear that generations of Egyptians recognized Imhotep's achievements. They revered his name, In time, he was even made a god, an honor traditionally bestowed on kings.